I've never told my long-time viewers this, but I have a long-standing interest in lost media. Lost media is described as, appropriately enough, a piece of media that is lost or difficult to track down. The best place to find information on a piece of media that is considered lost is the Lost Media Wiki. The wiki has played a huge role in many pieces of lost media being found, such as Rhapsody Street Kids, one of the worst animated movies of all time that aired once and then went missing for over a decade, before it was obtained by the wiki's owner Diacate and made available for everyone to view, and About Dressy Sally, aka Clockman, which was lost for decades before it finally resurfaced on YouTube in 2017. However, there is a darker side to the wiki. A number of entries on it are labelled NSFL, which stands for Not Safe for Life. This means they are the most disturbing pieces of media listed on the site. There's a reason most of these are lost, namely they've been withheld from the public due to their graphic or unsettling content. Like I said, I have a long-standing interest in lost media, and that includes the disturbing kind. So in this video, I'll be going through the Not Safe for Life section of the Lost Media Wiki. The Andrew Blaze Suicide Tapes. Andrew Blaze, real name Randy Stair, was a YouTuber who originally started on the site in 2008 on a channel called Pioneers Productions, which was mostly used for uploading comedy skits.
Randy, have you seen my wooden alligator?
Yeah, dude, he's like your best character. I watch your videos of...
No, I mean, have you seen him?
No, why?
He's gone.
This channel was not successful, so he moved over to another one called Ember's Ghost Squad. The channel was named after Ember McLean from Danny Phantom, who Randy seemed to have developed an obsession with, to the point where he wanted to die and be reincarnated as her. Somewhere along the line, Randy basically went completely insane.
And that's when Ember came back into my life. It was in 2013, around late March, early April. That's when she came back into my life. I looked up the episode again on YouTube and looked up the song again, and then that was it. From that point forward, she never left my life again. Ever. I played the song pretty much every single day of my life. And just fell down a hole of deep, dark depression and despair and nothingness into an abyss of just fucking darkness. I can't even explain it. And every day, it just got a little bit darker.
He hated the world and wanted to make sure everyone knew.
Okay, so here's the deal. Got a 1983 quarter right here. You believe in fate? Here's the fate test. I'm gonna flip this 3 times, or the best out of 3 rather. And if it's heads, I'll do it here. If it's tails, supermarket. That's a tails. That's a heads. Ooh, one of each. Tension's building up. It's a tails. That's tails. You realize, if I flip this next coin and it lands on tails, there's gonna be devastation and destruction. Tails. That is a tails, folks. Tails. Which means there's gonna be a besides my own. Possibly more than one. That's fate for you.
He made an animated movie in which he and a character named Rachel went on a shoot in a high school. This was his way of foreshadowing his eventual plan to shoot up the supermarket where he worked, where on June 8th, 2017, he would kill 3 people before turning the gun on himself.
Like, there's 250 fucking shells! 250 rounds of ammunition!
The day before, he posted links on his Twitter that led to his journal and hours worth of videos detailing his plans. One of which was filmed the day before the shoot, where Randy took us on a sick twisted tour of the supermarket where he'd murdered 3 people the very next day. These videos briefly went missing after the shooting, but were found a few weeks later and uploaded to archive.org. So they're not lost anymore, but they're still listed on the wiki, so I'd say they count. The Armin Meiwes tape.
My name, Armin Meiwes. I was born 1961. I'm computer engineer from Rothenburg, Germany. I killed a man, slaughtered him and ate him. Since then, he is always with me.
On March 9th, 2001, in Rotenburg, Germany, 39-year-old IT technician Armin Meiwes and 39-year-old engineer Bernd Brandes met after organizing over the internet to have Brandes killed and eaten by Meiwes, who had a fetish for cannibalism. Armin had tried several times to bait a victim, going as far as to meet a potential candidate, but failed as they backed out. Eventually, Armin's post caught the attention of Brandes, who also had a cannibalism fetish, but in his case wanted to be eaten. The two arranged to meet up, and upon arriving at Armin's house, Brandes asked him to bite off his member. When this proved unsuccessful, Armin cut it off with a knife. Brandes tried to eat it raw, but it was too chewy, so Armin tried frying it, but cooked it to the point where it was inedible, so he gave it to his dog. After that, Brandes sat in a bathtub and bled out for 3 hours while Armin read a Star Trek novel. After Brandes was dead, Armin took his body to a room that he turned into a makeshift slaughterhouse and dismembered him. Armin would later make a detailed post on the Cannibal Cafe, which was the fetishist forum where he'd met Brandes, in which he revealed what he'd done. Someone on the site reported him to the police and he was arrested in December 2002. Armin had apparently kept Brandes' flesh in ice boxes and had consumed roughly 20 kilograms of it. Upon his arrest, the police found a tape showing the events of the killing and later dismembering. The only time the police ever allowed the tape to be seen was during Armin's trial, where 4 journalists who were present apparently required therapy after viewing it. Armin was convicted of manslaughter and was sentenced to 8 years in prison. A retrial in 2005 saw him found guilty of murder, and he was sentenced to life in prison. The video itself remains in possession of the German authorities, and due to its graphic content is unlikely to ever be released to the public. Brandon Lee's death footage. Brandon Lee was the son of legendary martial artist and actor Bruce Lee. Following in his father's footsteps, Brandon also became a martial artist and actor, landing supporting roles in several action movies before he was cast as a leading role in Alex Proyas' 1994 cult classic, The Crow, which would be his first and only leading role. On March 31st, 1993, Lee was filming a scene in which his character, Eric Draven, is shot upon witnessing the rape and beating of his fiancée. Michael Massey, as the character Funboy, was to shoot Lee with a real .44 Magnum revolver that was using dummy cartridges. This same gun had been used for an earlier scene, after which they unknowingly left a live primer, which is responsible for creating the combustion that launches bullets out of a gun, inside the cartridge. The gun had been fired with enough force to lodge a bullet in the gun's barrel. When it came time for the scene where the gun would be fired at Lee, blank rounds were loaded into the gun with live powder and primer. The production's firearms specialist had gone home for the day, so the gun hadn't been checked to make sure there was no obstructions in the barrel of the gun. Because of the powder and primer, the bullet lodged in the barrel was discharged with the same force they would have had if it were loaded with a live round. The bullet struck Brandon in the abdomen. He was rushed to the hospital but died later that day. His death was caught on camera and was allegedly destroyed under the insistence of the director. However, some of the cameramen claim otherwise, including one who even claims to own a copy of the death footage. The footage has never been released or seen, and no legitimate stills of the footage have been found either. Despite Lee's death being a freak accident that was ultimately caused due to the production crew cutting corners and not taking the time to check the gun, Michael Massey, who fired the bullet at Lee, never got over the incident. He was said to have never watched the movie and regretted the incident until his death from stomach cancer in 2016. It really is tragic that, just like his father, Brandon died young through no fault of his own. Because of this, we never really got to see what kind of career he could have had. He could have gone on to be just as influential as his father, but sadly, we'll never know what could have been. The death of Owen Hart. I couldn't make a video like this without covering Owen Hart's death. Owen Hart was a Canadian professional wrestler and a member of the Hart wrestling family. He's best known for his time wrestling in the World Wrestling Federation where, although he didn't reach the heights of his older brother Bret the Hitman Hart, was well loved by the fans due to his impressive in-ring ability and his charismatic personality. In 1997, following an incident known as the Montreal Screwjob, Bret Hart left the company for the rival promotion WCW. He was followed by the British Bulldog and later Jim the Anvil Neidhart, who were Bret and Owen's brothers-in-law. This left Owen as the only member of the Hart family in the WWF. In early 1999, the WWF repackaged him as the Blue Blazer, the gimmick he had when he debuted in the company a decade earlier.
You know, there's a lot of tough wrestlers in the World Wrestling Federation. Big, mean, nasty, tough guys like Dino Bravo uses all that muscle to win his matches. Then there's Bad News Brown, the Brooklyn Brawler, with all their dirty street fighting tactics, and they use that to win. Then there's guys like Mr. Perfect, Kurt Hennig. You think you're the greatest wrestler in the world. Well, Mr. Perfect, you step in the ring with the Blue Blazer and let me show you what great wrestling is all about. Because each and every one of you guys have your own styles, but I too have my own unique style. And I use that acrobatic maneuver to beat you guys 1, 2, 3 in the middle of the ring. And that's my strategy, to beat you guys with my great wrestling acrobatics. And that's what's going to get me to the top of the World Wrestling Federation. So all you big, tough, arrogant, nasty wrestlers, come on, I'm ready for you, in the ring.
On several occasions, Owen would make his entrance to the ring by being lowered by a zip wire. On May 23rd, 1999, at the Over the Edge pay-per-view, Owen was going to make this entrance for a match with the Godfather for the Intercontinental Championship. Just before the match was due to start, announcer Jim Ross said that there was big problems, and the feed cut to an interview with Owen that was filmed earlier that night.
Folks, let's take you now to an interview conducted earlier tonight with Kevin Kelly and the Blue Blazer, and we got big problems out here.
Well, Blue Blazer, you got a big match tonight, going after the Intercontinental Championship, taking on the Godfather.
Ooh, the Godfather. Just saying his name makes my blue blood boil. Ooh, the Godfather, my arch nemesis. He represents everything that's wrong with the WWF. But fear not, because I, the Blue Blazer, will always triumph over evildoers. And you know why? Because I always take my vitamins, say my prayers, and drink my milk. Woo!
This would be the last time he was ever seen alive on television. During a hype package that was shown before the interview, Owen was making his entrance on the zip wire. He was supposed to unlatch his harness when he was a few feet above the ring, causing him to fall flat on his face for comedic effect, as his wrestling persona was a bumbling superhero. The harness was accidentally unlatched prematurely, causing Hart to fall 24 meters chest first onto the top rope, flinging violently into the ring. Jim Ross informed the TV audience what was happening as the camera cut from him to the crowd, staying off the ring while the paramedics worked on Owen.
Ladies and gentlemen, when you're doing live television, a lot of things can happen, and sometimes they are not good. The Blue Blazer, as we know, as Owen Hart, was going to make a very spectacular superhero-like entrance from the rafters, and something went terribly wrong here. Certainly, Owen Hart, Blue Blazer, very serious situation here at this point in time is being attended to by the EMTs. This is not a part of the entertainment here tonight. This is as real can be here. And the EMTs are tending to Owen in the ring now. And we are at a little bit of a loss for this situation. I've been doing this for more years than I would like to admit, and this is it's one of the most shocking things I've ever seen. This is not your typical wrestling storyline. This is a real situation.
The event was postponed for 15 minutes before the WWF CEO Vince McMahon made the decision to continue the event. 1 hour after the event was resumed, Ross appeared on camera once more to deliver the news that Owen Hart had passed away from his injuries.
Here in Kansas City, tragedy befell the World Wrestling Federation and all of us. Owen Hart was set to make an entrance from the ceiling, and he fell from the ceiling. And I have the unfortunate responsibility to let everyone know that Owen Hart has died. Owen Hart has tragically died from that accident here tonight.
Since cameras were rolling at the time of the accident, footage of Hart's fatal fall exists on tape. Former WWF announcer Kevin Kelly, who was also the one interviewing Owen in the pre-taped segment at the event, stated that the tape is stored in the promotion's video library, with strict orders never to destroy, view, or duplicate. The Over the Edge pay-per-view was not officially made available to watch until 2014, when it was added to the WWE network. However, all references to Owen Hart during the show are removed, though they do display this image as a tribute to him. Due to legal issues with Owen's widow Martha Hart, who successfully won a wrongful death lawsuit against the company following her husband's death, it's unlikely that footage of his death will ever be released. All we have are several screenshots of Owen being treated by the paramedics, and also audio from the Spanish announce team at the event, where their reaction to Owen's fall can be heard, and the sound of Owen hitting the turnbuckle is also audible.
The Blue Blazer is back in the WWF because the WWF needs the Blue Blazer back.
Y él dice, el Blue Blazer que aquí hay que traer reformas. ¡Oh, no! ¡Oh, no!
Why me? Because the WWE needs a superhero like the Blue Blazer.
When Owen was falling, everybody that was there said the last thing that he yelled was, "Look out. A guy's fallen from 100 feet and he knows he's done. And the last thing he's thinking is, look out, I don't want to hurt you." You know, it was foolish, it was unnecessary, it didn't need to happen.
Tiny Tim's heart attack. Herbert Boutros Corey, better known by his stage name Tiny Tim, was an American singer, musician and musical archivist, best known for his 1968 rendition of Tiptoe Through the Tulips, which made it to number 17 on the charts.
I'll tiptoe through the window, by the window, that is where I'll be. Come tiptoe through the tulips with me.
Though you probably know him better for this.
Things that bother you never bother me. I feel happy and fine, living in the sunlight, loving in the moonlight, having a wonderful time.
Interestingly enough, while he was known for his falsetto vocals, he was actually a baritone.
You'll find me too weak to break the chains that bind me. I'm ready for love, deep and fulfilling.
He was also known for having a near encyclopedic knowledge of music, as displayed in this clip with Bing Crosby, where he was able to name what song Crosby was singing as well as what film it was from just from hearing one line.
Down the old Ox Road, though you'll never know where it is by looking at maps.
Oh, gee, that's easy.
What's that?
The year was 1933.
True.
The picture was College Humor.
Right.
And from that picture, you also sang, "Learn to croon. You'll eliminate each rival soon. If you're heading for a sunny honeymoon, learn to croon."
He also married his first wife on the Johnny Carson show, which was watched by an audience of 40 million people. However, after this, his fame began to decline. He continued to record new material and perform, but received very little attention. As the years went by, Tiny stopped taking care of his health, having a very poor diet and became a heavy drinker. He eventually developed congestive heart failure and type 2 diabetes. Despite his poor health, he continued performing. On September 28, 1996, Tiny was set to perform at the Ukulele Hall of Fame Expo at the Montague Book Mill in Massachusetts. His appearance at this event was caught on camera, but unfortunately due to copyright reasons I can't show the footage without it being heavily edited. As Tiny gave a speech to the audience, he was about to mention that he wasn't feeling very well. As he said this, Tiny collapsed and fell off the stage while the camera was still rolling.
If you hear any coughing during the show, well, it's because, you know.
He regained consciousness later on in the hospital and was told that he'd suffered a heart attack. He was interviewed while in the hospital, but the audio in the footage is very muffled and it's more or less impossible to make out what he's saying.
I was more concerned over the playoff.
His doctors warned him that if he didn't retire from performing, he'd be lucky to live maybe another year. Tiny ignored this advice, saying, quote, "I am ready for anything that happens. Death is never polite, even when we expect it. The only thing I pray for is the strength to go out without complaining." 2 months later, Tiny performed at a benefit show for the Women's Club of Minneapolis. He finished the show with his signature song, Tiptoe Through the Tulips. As he began walking off stage, his wife Susan asked him if he was feeling okay. He simply replied with, "No, I'm not." He then collapsed and fell unconscious. He was rushed to the hospital where doctors attempted to revive him, but he never woke up. Tiny Tim died on November 30th from a heart attack. He was 64 years old. These pictures were taken just before his death. The footage of his first heart attack was lost for over 20 years before a company called Video Syncrasies made the video available as a bonus feature for anyone who paid to watch a documentary they made. I'm not trying to sound like an asshole here, but I personally think that this footage shouldn't be hidden behind a paywall. This is why, in December 2019, I paid to rent the documentary and recorded the footage of Tiny's heart attack with OBS. I then uploaded it to archive.org so it would be free for anyone to watch. As I said, I couldn't show the footage here because the copyright holders clearly don't believe in fair use, as they're known to send threatening emails to people claiming they'll have their YouTube channels taken down unless they paid to use the footage. I believe that this footage is historically significant and shouldn't be hidden behind a paywall by a bunch of greedy people trying to make money off a man's near-death experience. As disturbing as the footage could be to some people, I still believe it should be available for everyone to view.
Tiny. Say hi to the people in Ames.
Nice talking to you all. Ames, I remember the ones from time I was there. Just give them like this.
You look great, Tiny. We love you.
Well, there you have it, folks. That's 5 pieces of disturbing lost media. Well, 3 lost and 2 previously lost. But like I said, they were listed on the Lost Media Wiki still, so they do count. There was originally supposed to be 9 pieces of lost media that was going to be in this video, but unfortunately, due to YouTube's community guidelines, I couldn't actually put them into the video. They were a bit too gory and gruesome, if you know what I mean. But yeah, the ones I used in this video were still pretty dark and still pretty disturbing, and in some cases actually tragic. Actually, all of them were tragic except for Randy Stair's case. I don't feel any sympathy for Randy Stair. I feel sympathy for the people he killed, but not for him. Brandon Lee's and Owen Hart's stories were pretty tragic because they both died because the people in charge of the production they were a part of didn't take the proper safety precautions. In other words, their deaths could have been completely avoided. By the way, I am glad that I finally got to share my story about making the footage of Tiny Tim's heart attack available for everyone to watch. Like I said, historically significant footage like that should not be hidden behind a paywall. Also, just a little aside, I do recommend checking out Tiny Tim's music. Let's just say he had a lot more to offer than just Tiptoe Through the Tulips and Living in the Sunlight. I'll be leaving a link to the articles of all the lost media I mentioned in this video, since obviously that's where I got a lot of the information from. And I also want to give a little shout out and thanks to the Lost Media Wiki. Please keep doing what you're doing, Lost Media Wiki. And thank you folks for watching. Please give the video a thumbs up if you liked it, leave a comment and subscribe if you're new. I'll be seeing you all next time. Goodbye. A while back, I made a video going through 5 pieces of disturbing lost media that were listed under the Not Safe for Life category on the Lost Media Wiki. That video did really well, so I've decided to dive into the NSFL page once again, as I barely even scratched the surface of this particular lost media rabbit hole. I should warn you all that this content may be disturbing to some viewers, so if you're squeamish, I advise you to click off of this video now. For those of you who've stayed, this is 9 more pieces of dark and disturbing lost media. Aaron Ralston's Blue John Canyon incident.
My name's Irwin Ralston. My parents are down on Larry Ralston of Englewood, Colorado. Whoever finds this, please make an attempt to get it to them. Be sure of it. I would appreciate it.
Aaron Ralston is an American medical engineer and motivational speaker born in 1976. After working as an engineer for the Intel Corporation for 5 years, he quit after developing a love for mountaineering and moved to Colorado to pursue a full-time career in this field. On April 26, 2003, the then 26-year-old Ralston was scaling the Blue John Canyon in southeastern Utah. While climbing down a slot canyon, a boulder that he was using to support his weight became dislodged and pinned his right hand against the canyon wall. Despite his best efforts, he couldn't free his arm, and because he hadn't informed anyone that he would be climbing the canyon, he knew nobody would come looking for him. Over the next few days, Ralston was forced to ration his food supply, which consisted of 350 milliliters of water and 2 burritos, and eventually had to resort to drinking his own urine. During the course of the event, Ralston created a video diary for his friends and family, as he believed he was going to die. After failing to chip away at the boulder with a knife, Ralston decided that he would attempt to amputate his forearm. This proved difficult, however, as the knife could not break through the bone. After 5 days, Ralston carved his name and the date he predicted he would die onto the wall, and he recorded his last goodbyes to his family. The next day, however, he managed to break his arm using the torque against it. He then managed to amputate his arm using a tourniquet to stop the blood flow and a multi-tool to cut through the muscle tissue and a nerve.
And so I slammed my body against the opposite wall. I grabbed the backside of the boulder and even got my feet up to where I was standing halfway up the wall and grabbing the backside of the rock and humping my body over it until finally that bottom bone snapped. But I knew that was the hard part.
It was only a few more moments of work
after that. And then, boom, and I wasn't even attached anymore, and I fell down like this, and I was free.
You were reborn.
It was the happiest moment of my life, and it's funny to think about it being. There will never be a more powerful experience for me.
After freeing himself, Ralston rappelled one-handed down the canyon. While attempting to hike back to his car, he encountered a family on vacation from the Netherlands who gave him food and water and alerted the authorities. A helicopter search party happened to pass overhead moments later and picked him up. Ralston was asked in an interview if he would ever make his footage public, and while he understood the intrigue and interest behind the concept, he politely declined, stating that it was a private, personal video made for his family and friends and that he intended for it to remain that way. Despite this, one video clip has been released, as well as a compilation of audio snippets taken from different sections of the tape.
Been putting a lot of effort into staying warm. I have very, very little water. My body's having difficulty controlling its temperature. I'm in deep stuff. It's pretty much suicide. It's 4 hours from here to my vehicle. Climbing would probably be impossible with one hand. The blood loss and my dehydration, I think, are ruling that out. I think I would die if I cut my arm. I don't know what it is about me. It's brought me to this, but I go out looking for adventure and risk so I can feel alive. I tell someone where I'm going, and it's just dumb. I can't stop thinking about how good grapefruit juice, or margarita, or OJ, or a popsicle, all these great things that I would love to have. An orange, the tangerine. I can't think about that stuff. God, I'm really screwed.
In 2010, a movie titled 127 Hours, named after the amount of time that Ralston spent trapped in the canyon, was released starring James Franco. To prepare for the role, Franco and the film's producers were allowed to view the home video footage that Ralston had recorded, and parts of the film's transcript were taken directly from Ralston's video. While I, and I'm sure many others, would like Aaron to make the footage public, I respect his decision to keep it private, as it was obviously a very harrowing experience for him, and the story of his survival should be enough. The Cannibal Holocaust Piranha Scene. Cannibal Holocaust is a 1980 Italian exploitation horror film directed by Ruggero Deodato. The film tells the story of a missing documentary crew that was filming cannibal tribes in the Amazon. New York University anthropologist Harold Monroe is sent on an expedition to track down the missing crew. He manages to recover the film crew's lost cans of film, which an American broadcast station wishes to broadcast. Upon viewing the film reels, Monroe is appalled by the disturbing actions of the film crew and urges the station not to broadcast the documentary.
Things like this happen all the time in the jungle. It's survival of the fittest. In the jungle, it's the daily violence of the strong overcoming the weak. Jack!
At the time of the film's release, the found footage genre didn't really exist yet, so it was groundbreaking and is believed to have influenced the found footage movies that came years later, most notably the Blair Witch Project. Cannibal Holocaust caused a great deal of controversy, not only due to its graphic violence, but also due to on-screen killings of live animals and snuff film allegations that led to Deodato being charged with murder, until he was able to prove the stars of the movie were indeed alive. The film was banned in Italy, Australia, Norway, and many other countries due to its content, though some bans have since been lifted. Among the many gruesome scenes in the film, another one was scripted that is commonly dubbed the Piranha Scene. In this scene, a single Shamatari warrior injured in battle was to have his leg amputated by warriors of the Yanomamo tribe. The tribe would then tie the Shamatari warrior to a log and lower him into the piranha-infested waters, slowly being eaten alive by the fearsome fish. Filming for the scene did commence but was never completed due to the piranhas being difficult to control and the film crew's underwater camera was malfunctioning and only production stills exist. It was rumoured that the scene was included in several obscure foreign video releases, but this was proven to be false. The whereabouts of the surviving footage, if any, is unknown.
John, I want this material burned. All of it. Yep.
The Columbine Basement Tapes. On April 20th, 1999, Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold, who were attending Columbine High School, shot and killed 14 students and a teacher before turning the guns on themselves. The incident was dubbed the Columbine Massacre. In December 1999, Time magazine reporter Tim Roach was given access to 5 videotapes recorded by the murderers that investigators had discovered. Roach published an article for Times on the tapes on December 20th, soon after viewing them, dubbing them the Basement Tapes. Not long after the article's publication, furious family members of the deceased threatened to sue Jefferson County, considering the fact that not even they had been given access to the recordings. They came to an agreement, with Jefferson County quickly screening the tapes for them and then putting them in a vault indefinitely. However, in February 2015, word surfaced that the unreleased tapes had been approved for destruction by Sheriff Ted Mink of Jefferson County, Colorado in 2011. When an unknown party filed an open records request to view the unreleased tapes, they received a notice that the Sheriff's Office no longer had any documents in its possession responsive to their request. Afterward, a spokesperson for the Sheriff's Office confirmed that the tapes had been destroyed and that no copies are known to exist at all, meaning that the tapes would be lost forever if true. Over an hour's worth of footage made for a class project filmed by the two has surfaced in the years since. The two most notable pieces of footage are Rampart Range, which shows them at a shooting range with their friends using firearms, and the second is a student film they made called Hitmen for Hire, where they acted as bodyguards for people who were being bullied. However, once again, the things they say in this video definitely foreshadow what they would do several months later. Rampart Range is completely banned from YouTube due to it violating YouTube's policy on graphic violence, but is available on Dailymotion. Hitmen for Hire, however, is available on YouTube. As for the Basement Tapes themselves, as stated previously, it seems very unlikely that they will ever be released to the public. The Japanese Cannibal Audio. In the summer of 1981, Issei Sagawa, a Japanese student studying abroad in France, invited classmate Renee Hardveld to his apartment for dinner and to study poetry. What culminated was Sagawa's intention to kill Hardveld and consume her flesh. Sagawa claims that he'd had cannibalistic desires ever since he was a child after seeing someone else's thigh. In 1977, at the age of 27, Sagawa moved to France to pursue a PhD in literature at the Sorbonne in Paris. On June 11, 1981, Sagawa, then 32, invited his classmate Renee Hardveld, a Dutch woman, to dinner under the pretext of translating poetry for a school assignment. While Hardveld was reading a Jones Robert Becher poem about death, he shot her with a rifle. Using an electric knife, he started taking more than several kilos of meat from her body. He consumed her flesh during the next 3 days, cooking several meals and performing depraved acts with her corpse, before finally getting rid of the body. Sagawa recorded the entire incident on tape, including Hardveld's last words and the actual shot that was fired. He also shot a total of 39 photographs showing several stagings he made with the corpse. Trying to make her body disappear, Sagawa eventually made a mistake by losing one of the suitcases containing her body parts in a public garden. The police later found the suitcase and arrested the man who was to be called the Japanese Cannibal by the newspapers. The rest of Hartfeld's body, the rifle, the photos, and the tape recorder, as well as several other pieces of evidence, were found in his apartment. Sagawa's wealthy father provided a lawyer for his defense, and after being held for 2 years awaiting trial, Sagawa was found legally insane and unfit to stand trial by the French judge, who ordered him held indefinitely in a mental institution. After a visit by the author Inuhiko Yamota, Sagawa's account of his kill was published in Japan under the title In the Fog. After being deported back to Japan, psychologists determined that he was legally sane and that perversion was the reason behind the murder. Due to the charges against him being dropped in France, the Japanese authorities were unable to sentence him, and he's remained free ever since. In the years since the murder, Sagawa has somehow become something of a celebrity in Japan. He's appeared in movies, published books, and has even written restaurant reviews for the magazine Spa. In 2013, he suffered a cerebral infraction which permanently damaged his nervous system. He's since said that he regrets what he did in 1981. The audio of the murder was confiscated by the French authorities and to this day has never been released. Images from the crime scene have been released, and after having seen them, I strongly suggest that you don't go looking for them unless you have a very strong stomach, as they are extremely graphic. Noah's Ark, the complete cut. Noah's Ark is a 1928 early talkie film based on the famous Bible story. The film is best known for its flood scene, which reportedly drowned 3 actors, critically injured another, and almost claimed the life of a 19-year-old John Wayne, who was cast as an extra in the scene. The actors can clearly be seen struggling to stay alive in the large amount of water used for the scene, and this film is responsible for putting forth stricter safety regulations on stunt scenes. In the footage you're seeing here, these people are not acting, they are legitimately frightened for their lives. When the film premiered in New York, it was 135 minutes in length. The film received harsh criticism for its poor sound quality and the aforementioned flood scene. For the wide release version, 35 minutes were cut to correct those criticisms. The longer version of the flood scene was apparently even more unsettling and even contained shots of the actors who were drowning. The 100-minute version is the only cut of the film that survives. The original premiere version hasn't been seen since its first showing in New York, leaving the aforementioned 35 minutes lost. If this footage does still exist, it's most likely being kept in the New York Film Archive and is unlikely to be released due to the on-screen deaths. The Skyway Man. The Skyway Man is a 1920 documentary film about stunt flights produced by Fox Film Corporation. The film is mostly known both for its breathtaking stunts as well as the uncut footage of the crash that claimed the lives of Omar Locklear and Milton Elliott. On the night of August 2nd, 1920, one stunt was being filmed using the floodlights to help guide the pilots. The 2 pilots were operating a biplane and instructed the crew members to shut off the lights when they were getting ready to get close to the ground. They had flares attached to the wings to give the plane the illusion that they were on fire. The plane was to simulate a crash on the ground. The crew, however, neglected the directions to turn off the floodlights. Blinded by the glare of the lights, the pilots had no idea the ground was closer to them than they thought, and the plane crashed, killing both instantly. Locklear's girlfriend, Viola Dana, was on set and witnessed the crash. This scene and its aftermath, including Dana's horrified reaction, was left in the film, making it one of the first films to feature the on-screen deaths of its members. The scene shocked audiences worldwide. No footage of the film is known to exist, but some production stills, ads, and photos of the crash have survived. The death of Steve Irwin.
G'day and welcome to the primitive island of New Guinea. On this mission, I'm going to take you from the mangroves all the way across the swamplands, up a river, into the rainforest, and right up into the mysterious jungles in the clouds.
If you grew up in the 90s and early 2000s, it's likely you know who Steve Irwin is. Steve Irwin is of course better known as the Crocodile Hunter, thanks to his documentary series of the same name, which ran from 1996 to 2007 and achieved worldwide acclaim, mostly due to Irwin's daredevil presenting style, whereby he'd put himself into incredibly risky situations to capture footage of numerous dangerous animals.
If I can get it on the ground, on a flat level ground, I've got a good chance. Yeah, you're alright, mate. You're all right. It means business. Snake is aggressive. Its mouth's open. This must be pretty typical for the Egyptian cobra. You're alright, mate. You're alright. You're alright, buddy. You're alright. You're okay. Settle down. You're alright, buddy. I never quite realised that these 2 giant goannas saw me as a food source. And as I approached, unknowingly, they just struck straight at me, going for my calf muscles, trying to pull them out. Their teeth are like razors. One bite, one laceration, and I'd bleed out and be dead in an instant. The smell of blood would send other dragons into a frenzy and they'd come from everywhere.
Holy smokes, that was too close.
Crocodiles attack so hard and fast from the water's edge that their prey doesn't get enough time to squeak after they've been hit. Whack! Grabs my hand back into the water so quick that my backup couldn't do a thing about it. His teeth penetrated straight through my hand. A dangerous mistake that I'll never make again. It's quick. Real quick.
He also ran the Australia Zoo with his wife Terry, and would often film episodes of the show there.
And welcome to Australia Zoo. Mate, every single thing you see here today, myself and my mum and dad built from the ground up. And Terry and I, well, we're just continuing the family tradition. Please, come and have a look at the things we love the most. Our animals. Let's have a look.
In 2006, Steve began filming for a series called Ocean's Deadliest. 8 days into filming while looking for tiger sharks, bad weather had brought production to a standstill. Steve said to his cameraman, Justin Lyons, "Let's go do something." So they got into an inflatable boat and went searching for something to film. Before long, they found an 8-foot wide stingray. Steve then got into the chest-deep waters to interact with the stingray, while Justin filmed him. Stingrays are not usually aggressive animals, and are more likely to run than fight as they are very fast swimmers, so that's naturally what they expected this stingray to do when Steve approached it. However, when Steve got close, the stingray turned to face him and began stabbing violently with its tail. Lyons believes that the stingray probably mistook Steve's shadow for a tiger shark, who are known to prey on them, and was trying to defend itself. Lyons continued filming as Steve had told him that under no circumstances was he ever to stop, no matter how badly injured he was. According to eyewitness testimonies from crew members, the stingray struck Irwin in the chest multiple times, puncturing his heart, after which point he was immediately pulled from the water by his colleagues onto Croc 1, a 75-foot yacht created for the purposes of conducting both research and adventure tours, and then attempted to rush to the shore as Irwin bled out. An hour had passed before they made it to land, during which time Lyons performed CPR on Irwin, all the while a second cameraman continued shooting footage from the sidelines. Irwin was pronounced dead by the paramedics within seconds of their arrival. According to Lyons, his last words were, "I'm dying." The resulting footage was handed over to the Queensland authorities, who are said to have eventually returned it to Irwin's family, who are, in turn, said to have destroyed it. Lyons, when asked about his feelings on the possibility of the footage one day being aired, said that he hopes it is never released, out of respect to Irwin's family, and also revealed that he is no longer in possession of the recordings, and that he suspects there are no remaining copies in existence.
All right, well, she's very cute. We're gonna have to take a break right now, and then in the commercial, we're gonna see you try and get that thing out of here without being killed, which I think is gonna be really fun. All right, Steve Irwin, thank you very much for being with us. Give him a hand, everybody. We'll take a break.
The Dawn Brancheau tape.
Gosh, do I love coming out here every day and having the audience just love what we're doing with the animals. How do I make this animal as beautiful as they are and have people walk away loving this animal, and they're touched and they're moved, and I feel like I made a difference to them.
Dawn Brancheau was a trainer at SeaWorld in Orlando, Florida, where she worked for 15 years training orcas, also known as killer whales. She was known to film every performance she did with the orcas so that she could see what she needed to improve on. She became very popular at SeaWorld thanks to the Shamu show and became the theme park's poster girl. On February 24, 2010, Brancheau performed a Dine with Shamu show with Tilikum, the largest orca at SeaWorld Orlando. As part of the end show routine, she was at the edge of the pool, rubbing Tilikum's head. She was lying with her face next to Tilikum's on a side out, which is a platform submerged about a foot into water. Suddenly, Dawn was grabbed by the arm by Tilikum and dragged under the water.
Then she walked around the perimeter of G-Pool. He followed her. And then continued over into the rocky ledge area where she laid down with him to do a relationship session, which is, it's quiet time basically.
Tilikum at some point grabbed a hold of her left forearm and started to drag her and eventually did a barrel roll and pulled her in.
He wouldn't release her, and because she was submerged under the water, she drowned. Eventually, the park's employees were able to lure Tillicum into a smaller pool and attempted to calm him down. After 45 minutes, he finally released her body. It wasn't until the autopsy that it was revealed just how much blunt force trauma Tillicum had caused to Brancheau's body. As stated earlier, Dawn had every performance filmed, so the attack was caught on camera and part of the footage was used in the documentary film Blackfish, but cuts off just before Tillicum grabs Brancheau. This is likely out of respect for her and her family, or because SeaWorld forbade the footage to be shown publicly. Dawn was the third person to be killed by Tillicum. His second victim, a drifter named Daniel P. Dukes, also had his attack caught on film, but this footage has never been seen and may have been destroyed. Blackfish shows other trainers being attacked by orcas, and SeaWorld's excuse for each of them was to claim it was a trainer's mistake. They also said the same of Dawn's death, meaning they tried to make it out that her death was her own fault, claiming that Tillicum grabbed her by the ponytail and that wouldn't have happened if she tied her hair back.
The new plan is that he grabbed her ponytail. This is a subtle way of placing the blame on Dawn's shoulders. She shouldn't have had a long ponytail, or if she did have that ponytail, it should have been up in a bun.
Dawn, if she was standing here with me right now, would tell you that that was her mistake.
How dare you? How disrespectful for you to blame her when she's not even alive to defend herself.
There are photographs of plenty of other trainers doing exactly the same thing that she was doing. So I knew that SeaWorld was lying about the fact that this was her fault.
The ponytail, in all likelihood, is just a tail.
Dawn's death and Blackfish caused huge amounts of controversy and criticism for SeaWorld, with many people saying that the orcas should not be held in captivity and that Tillicum should be set free so that he never killed anyone again. After the incident, a new rule was introduced that prohibited trainers from getting into the water with the orcas and always had a barrier between them. Tillicum actually continued appearing in performances until his death from a bacterial infection in 2017 at the age of 35. The Timothy Treadwell tape.
If I show weakness, if I retreat, I may be hurt, I may be killed. I must hold my own if I'm going to stay within this land. For once there is weakness, they will exploit it, they will take me out, they will decapitate me, they will chop me into bits and pieces. I'm dead.
Timothy William Dexter, better known by his nickname Timothy Treadwell, was an American environmentalist, documentary maker, and, most importantly, a bear enthusiast. Treadwell was known for spending long periods of time in Halo Bay on the Katmai coast in Alaska, where he'd observed grizzly bears. He was known for getting extremely close to the bears he observed, sometimes even touching them and playing with bear cubs. He would often name the bears he met and was said to develop long-standing relationships with them.
I want to introduce you to one of the key role players in this year's expedition. The bear's name is the Grinch. The Grinch has come on to be one of the more frequent bears here in the grizzly maze. The Grinch is a female of about 5 years of age. Oh, hi, Grinch. Hi. And she has kind of an aggressive attitude. Hi. If I turn around too much, she'll bite me. It's okay. Hi, how are you?
Between 1990 and 2001, he'd become notable enough that he'd been traveling around the USA teaching children about bears, and had even appeared on the Discovery Channel and The Late Show with David Letterman.
Now, when you're with these grizzly bears, you're surrounded by them. They're very close to you. Is that how you live with them?
Yes, I always give them respect and lots of room because, you know, a grizzly's the boss out there.
But you interact with them?
It's important that every bear knows who I am and that I fit on their hierarchy if I'm to survive.
Is it going to happen that one day we read a news article about you being eaten by one of these bears?
No.
In October 2003, Treadwell and his girlfriend, Amy Huguenard, who unlike Treadwell actually feared bears, were in Katmai National Park to study them. They were there later than usual, and at the time, the bears were filling up on food for hibernation. Food was scarce that year due to a series of droughts, which made them unusually aggressive. On October 5th, Treadwell informed an associate via a satellite phone call that they were having no problems with any of the bears in the area.
Oh, I must hide from the authorities. I must hide from people who would harm me. I must now even hide from people that seek me out because I've made some sort of, I don't want to say celebrity, but they come here to Alaska and they hear about Treadwell in the bush and they want to go find him. But they can't. I'm hidden down below. No one knows where I am. Even I don't even know where I am.
The next day, Willie Fulton, a Kodiak air taxi pilot, arrived at Treadwell and Huguenard's campsite to pick them up, but found the area abandoned, except for a bear, and contacted the local park rangers. After a quick investigation, their remains were found, park rangers shot the bear and, upon dissecting it, discovered human body parts in its stomach. A video camera was found at the site, which contained a 6-minute-long recording consisting only of audio due to the lens cap not being removed while the camera was on. The audio on the tape consisted of Treadwell and Huguenot screaming as they were attacked by the bear. The tape later found its way into the hands of Treadwell's ex-girlfriend, Jule Palovac. In 2005, German filmmaker Werner Herzog created a documentary called Grizzly Man, where he covered Treadwell's work in Alaska. In it, he met Palovac and was granted access to listen to the tape. While we can't hear any of it, we do see Herzog's reaction.
Can you turn it off?
After listening to it, he tells Palovac that she should destroy the tape.
Julie, you must never listen to this.
I know, Werner. I'm never going to.
And you must never look at the photos that I've seen at the coroner's office. I think you should not keep it. You should destroy it.
Yeah.
I think that's what you should do.
Okay.
Because it will be the white elephant in your room all your life.
She ultimately chose not to destroy it, but has stored it in a safe deposit box and claims to have never listened to it. As with the rest of the entries on this list, it seems unlikely this will ever be made public.
But let me tell you, ladies and gentlemen, there is no other place in the world that is more dangerous, more exciting than the Grizzly Maze. Come here and camp here. Come here and try to do what I do. You will die. You will die here. You will frickin' die here. They will get you. I found a way. I found a way to survive with them.
And there we have it, folks. That's 9 more pieces of disturbing lost media. I was finally able to include the Columbine basement tapes, which I had originally intended on putting in my last video. I apologise for not using any footage of Dylan Klebold and Eric Harris, but YouTube really doesn't want me using any in my videos. Hitmen for Hire is on YouTube and there's even a couple of reactions to it, but for whatever reason I can't use it. In regards to Issei Sagawa, I think we can all agree that he should be in prison right now. In my last video where I covered the Armin Meiwes tape, quite a few people left comments expressing sympathy towards him, as what he did to burn Brandis was actually consensual, and that Meiwes should not be serving a life sentence for what he did. In my honest opinion, Meiwes isn't a danger to anyone now, especially since he became a vegetarian, so obviously he wouldn't be interested in eating people anymore. Sagawa, on the other hand, he should be in jail right now. The only reason he never went to jail was because his rich father bailed him out. Him regretting his actions now doesn't absolve him. The guy's guilty as hell. As for the Dawn Brancheau incident, regardless of whether or not Tilikum acted out of malice, orcas are very intelligent after all, so it's likely that he was completely aware of what he was doing. It is seriously scummy of SeaWorld to try and pin the blame solely on Dawn, the victim in this situation, just to make it look like they weren't breaking any rules by having the trainers interact with a dangerous animal who'd killed people in the past. I honestly don't think the footage of her death should be released. I don't get shocked easily, but after learning about what Tilikum did to her, I never want to see that. Anyway folks, I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new. I'll see you all next time. Goodbye. A year ago, I made 2 videos about dark and disturbing lost media. At the time, I had no idea that they would lead to my channel becoming bigger than I could ever have imagined. They amassed a total of 6 million views. It's safe to say that these 2 videos basically put my channel on the map. I've decided to revisit lost media because there's still a few pieces out there to make a video on, and because my subscribers definitely seem to want another lost media video based on this poll I did. Before we begin, I have to point out that lost media means lost, as in unavailable. I've had comments complaining about me not showing anything, and people accusing me of quote, clickbaiting. I can't show what I don't have, so the problem isn't me clickbaiting, it's more people just not being able to wrap their heads around what lost media is. Anyway, with that mini rant over, here are 6 more pieces of dark and disturbing lost media. Rob Harris was an American skysurfer. Skysurfing is essentially, as the name suggests, skydiving crossed with surfing, as the person would jump from a plane and would use a special board attached to their feet to perform wild and impressive tricks as they fell. Rob Harris was considered to be the best in his field, as he was the skysurfing champion of 1994 and 1995. His popularity in the sport had led to him catching the interest of advertising companies who had hired him to promote their products, such as in this picture where he is promoting Valentino's Pizza. In 1995, PepsiCo hired him to perform in a commercial for Mountain Dew, which would be filmed by Academy Award-winning cinematographer Janusz Kaminski. The advertisement was meant to be a parody of James Bond, presumably to tie in with the most recent film at the time, GoldenEye. In the commercial, Harris, wearing a tuxedo and sunglasses, jumps from a plane that is about to crash, diving several hundred feet before deploying his parachute. He quickly releases himself from it and drops what appears to be several hundred feet before landing on a snowboard and riding down a mountain. The ad ends with him riding a BMX while jumping over a ditch. Of course, what's disturbing about this commercial is that by the time it had been released, Rob Harris had already been dead for several months, and it was filming this commercial that led to his death. The script called for Harris to jump at 5,000 feet, let loose his parachute to 3,000 feet, perform some tricks, then open a second chute. However, while performing the stunt, the lines of his parachute became tangled, causing him to begin spinning out of control, which caused him to begin descending at a dangerously fast rate. Seeing that he was in danger, Harris released himself from the parachute and attempted to open his reserve parachute. Unfortunately, the chute would not release in time, and Harris fell over 3,000 feet to the ground, dying upon impact. All of this was caught on film. This incident occurred on December 14th, 1995, only 3 days before Rob Harris's 28th birthday. A few months following the incident, PepsiCo, the owners of Mountain Dew, asked Harris's parents for permission to broadcast a slightly modified version of the ad, containing footage of Harris's previous takes. They reluctantly agreed in the end, deciding that Rob would have wanted it to be released and that his friends were looking forward to seeing it, and so were they. For a time, a rumor circulated that clips from Harris's fatal jump were included in the commercial, but this has since been confirmed as untrue, as this would have been incredibly thoughtless of the producers to have done such a thing. Several songs have been dedicated to Harris since his death, and a charity, the Rob Harris Foundation, was created in his memory. The fate of the footage has never been revealed, though it has most likely either been destroyed or confiscated by the authorities. Either way, it's incredibly unlikely that this footage will ever be made available to the public. If there's one thing all of my Lost Media videos have in common, it's that all of them involve a story about a cannibal. Between June 2009 and May 2010, 3 women went missing in Bradford, England. They were 43-year-old Susan Rushworth, 31-year-old Shelley Armitage, and 36-year-old Suzanne Blamires. All 3 women happened to be sex workers, leading the police to determine that they were dealing with a serial killer who seemed to be trying to be something of a modern-day Jack the Ripper, a serial killer from the 19th century who also targeted sex workers. Susan Rushworth disappeared on June 22, 2009. A mother of 3, she had fallen on hard times, suffering from an addiction to heroin, which she had been introduced to by her then boyfriend. She had become a sex worker in order to pay for drugs. Her mother Christine stated that in the days leading up to her disappearance, Susan had begun to turn her life around and had been prescribed with methadone to help get her off of heroin. On the day she vanished, Rushworth told her mother that she was going out to buy medicine. The last known footage of her alive consisted of her getting off of a bus. A missing persons report was filed by her mother and the police began searching for her, but after months of looking, the police were never able to locate any trace of her anywhere. On April 26, 2010, Shelley Armitage went missing. A former student at St. Joseph's College in Bradford, Armitage was known for being popular and good-looking and had aspirations to succeed in a modeling career. Unfortunately, these dreams were shattered when she fell into drug addiction when she was only 16. Much like Susan Rushworth, she began working the streets to fund her drug habit, though her family were unaware that she was doing this. On the day of her disappearance, she met her parents by chance while walking through town. After a brief conversation, her parents parted ways with her, not knowing that they would never see her again. Around 10 p.m. that night, CCTV captured footage of her walking up and down the streets of Sunbridge Road. This was the last time she was seen alive, as she vanished immediately afterwards. On May 22, 2010, Susan Blamires was reported missing. Like Susan Rushworth and Shelley Armitage, Suzanne was also a sex worker. She had originally been training to be a nurse when she was younger, but her love of partying and going to local raves led to her getting involved with drugs. She began working the streets at the age of 25 to help pay for her habit. This would continue until the day she went missing. After spending the night at her mother's house, her boyfriend informed her mother that she hadn't returned home that night. Her phone had been switched off, and she wasn't at any of her usual spots where she'd wait for clients. The police quickly began searching for her. Early in the morning of May 22nd, a caretaker at a block of flats called Homefield Court was performing some routine checks of the building's CCTV to check for any signs of vandalism or any other disorderly conduct. Nothing could have prepared him for what he would find, however. At 2:30 a.m., the camera captured Suzanne Blameyes entering the building with one of the tenants. Suzanne and the man entered the elevator and then began making their way to his flat. They went into the man's flat at 2:31 a.m. as the camera watches the empty hallway outside. Only 3 minutes later, however, Suzanne frantically ran out of the apartment, with the man chasing after her. The situation on its own is frightening enough, but it takes on a more terrifying tone when you see that the man is wielding a crossbow, meaning it's obvious what the man's intentions are. He attempts to shoot her but misses, and continues chasing her before finally catching her. He then wrestles her to the ground before firing at Suzanne from point-blank range, though this happens just out of the frame of the camera. After dragging Suzanne's body into his apartment, the man comes back out and walks right up to the camera, giving the finger and waving his crossbow right in front of it. The man's name is Stephen Griffiths, who had a very troubled past. Despite attending a paid private school, he became a delinquent at a young age, and when he was only 17, he was sentenced to 3 years in a young offenders facility after attacking a shopkeeper with a knife when the latter attempted to stop him from shoplifting. During his time in custody, he admitted he had a fascination with serial killers and expressed desires of becoming one himself. Only 3 years after being released from custody, he was arrested again and sentenced to 2 years in prison after it had been reported that he had held a knife to a girl's throat. During his sentence, he was diagnosed as a schizoid psychopath. After being released once again, Stephen attended the University of Bradford, where he majored in psychology and received a master's degree. Part of his psychology studies involved homicide studies concerning 19th century and modern murders. Local police were concerned with Griffiths, believing he was a serial killer in the making. 2 years before the murders, his hunting weapons were seized and he was found to have read books on dismemberment. This led to the police contacting the housing association which owned Griffiths' flat to request better CCTV to help capture any possible incidents. They were unable to proceed with sectioning him under the Mental Health Act due to the lack of evidence of possessing signs of psychotic illness or a treatable mental disorder. Peter Gee, the caretaker who witnessed the events on CCTV, immediately contacted the police upon viewing the murder caught on tape, which led to the arrest of Stephen Griffiths. He immediately confessed to the crimes, giving himself the name the Crossbow Cannibal.
Why did you feel the need to kill her?
I don't know. I don't know if I just sometimes you killed someone to kill yourself or kill parents. I don't know. It's like deep issues inside me.
The key evidence connecting him to the murder of Suzanne Rushworth were that traces of her blood were found in his flat. She was killed via a crossbow bolt before being dismembered in the bathtub and partially eaten. Like Rushworth, Shelley Armitage ended up in his flat, where he proceeded to end her life with a crossbow shot before dismembering and partially eating her. During the process of butchering her, Stephen decided to record the dismemberment on his phone, where he discussed in detail what he was doing. He also dismembered and ate Suzanne Blameyes before dumping what remained of her in the River Ire, which he had also done with Shelley Armitage's remains. It's worth noting that Stephen very nearly claimed a fourth victim. Just an hour after killing Blameyes, he found 28-year-old Rosalind Edmondson, who was on her way to collect methadone from an all-night chemist not far from his flat. He complimented her and invited her back into his flat. Initially, she walked back with him, with CCTV footage capturing the two outside the block of flats. However, Edmondson had second thoughts, and she decided to walk back to her own flat. Stephen did not attempt to convince her to change her mind, and returned home about an hour after the encounter. Parts of the CCTV footage of Blameyes' murder were broadcast on television. One broadcast by NBC News shows a video of Griffiths flipping the bird to the camera, as well as trying to convince Edmondson to come inside. But while they showed photos of Blameyes entering the flat and Stephen chasing after her, the actual footage of these events was never shown. Additionally, NBC News stated that they would not show the footage of Stephen dragging Blameyes back in his flat, nor would any footage of the crossbow shots be shown. This was the case with other news broadcasts, likely because of the graphic nature of the murder and out of respect for Blamires and their relatives. Thus, the full CCTV tape, while recovered, will likely never be shown to the public. At some point following the murder, Stephen Griffiths ended up losing his phone on a train. It ended up in the possession of a few people who were able to view the footage of him butchering Shelley Armitage, and the phone was even sold at one point before it was handed over to the police. The phone remains with the British court system. Considering the extremely graphic nature of the footage, and out of respect for the victims and their relatives, it's extremely unlikely that this media will ever leak to the public. The Mont Blanc Tunnel is a highway tunnel between France and Italy that runs between the Mont Blanc, the tallest mountain in the Alps. It's mostly used to transport freight between the two countries, as it reduces travel time significantly. The tunnel was officially opened on July 16, 1965, with traffic being allowed through 3 days later. The tunnel underwent extensive modernization works in 1990, including the addition of safety features such as new video surveillance cameras, 8 pressurized emergency shelters, a sprinkler system, and other safety maintenance. In 1997, a fire detection system was installed, along with centralized safety equipment management and new variable message signs. With the sprinkler system and fire detection system, the odds of a large fire breaking out and spreading out of control should have been slim. But as you no doubt guessed from the title of this segment, this was not the case. On March 24, 1999, at around 10:40 a.m., Gilbert de Grave, a 57-year-old Belgian delivery truck driver, was transporting a delivery of flour and margarine, and his route was to take him through the Mont Blanc tunnel. Almost immediately upon entering the tunnel, the drivers passing de Grave's truck on the other side noticed white smoke rising from the cabin and flashed their lights to alert him of the danger. At about 10:53 a.m., de Grave decided to stop about 6 kilometers into the tunnel, with the intent to grab a fire extinguisher and put out the blaze in the cabin. Suddenly, the truck erupted into flames, forcing de Grave to retreat and run towards the Italian side of the tunnel. One of the other drivers in the tunnel raised the alarm a minute after the truck burst into flames. Over the next few minutes, as the fire continued to rage, smoke began to cover almost half a kilometer of the French side of the tunnel. During this time, drivers from both ends attempted to turn around. A CCTV operator in the Italian control room saw the vehicles attempting to escape and used the tunnel's ventilation system to pump in fresh air in an attempt to aid their escape. This proved to be a terrible mistake, however, as pumping more air into the tunnel only helped the fire grow, spreading more smoke throughout the tunnel. Any vehicles caught in the path of the smoke became unable to move, as their engines stalled due to lack of oxygen. This included fire engines, which, once affected, had to be abandoned by the firefighters. Ultimately, because the smoke was traveling slowly towards the Italian side, it allowed everyone from that side to survive, including de Grave. However, nobody on the French side had a chance to be rescued, because the smoke contained both carbon monoxide and cyanide, resulting in most either perishing in their vehicle or being overcome by toxic fumes after trying to flee by foot. Firefighters entered the tunnel from both ends, but could not tackle the blaze, primarily due to the dense smoke and exploding shrapnel. One French fireman died after having been overcome by the tunnel's fumes. In total, the fire burned for 53 hours and reached temperatures of 1,000 degrees centigrade, mainly because of the margarine in the trailer. This made the trailer the equivalent to a 23,000-litre oil tanker. Fire spread to other cargo vehicles nearby that also carry combustible loads. The fire trapped around 40 vehicles in dense and poisonous smoke. In total, 39 people died from smoke inhalation. The disaster led to heavy criticism of the Mont Blanc tunnel system, including the CCTV cameras, which not only were criticized as being inadequate for capturing useful footage, but led to decisions from the tunnel operators that contributed to the disaster. Some CCTV footage was included in the 2012 French documentary, The Fire in the Mont Blanc Tunnel, with permission from the French courts. Some of the clips include a truck stopping before it jump cuts to the area being completely on fire, an emergency van entering the darkness caused by the black smoke, and various instances where smoke and flames made it impossible to see anything of interest from the cameras. However, key moments such as the truck exploding and the vehicles attempting to turn around that led to the fatal decision to pump fresh air into the tunnel were not included in the documentary. The fact that the documentary stated that it had received permission to showcase the footage indicates that the French court system does indeed hold the uncut CCTV tapes of the disaster. However, considering that the disaster has already been explained, and out of respect to the victims' relatives, it is unlikely that the full tapes will ever see any kind of official release. Chaibancha was an actor from Thailand who is often regarded as an icon of the country's cinematic golden age. Born in 1934, he grew up in poverty as the son of a police officer father and a greengrocer mother. Despite their lack of money, his parents were able to enroll him in a Thai boxing school as a teenager, and he would go on to win several lightweight division titles. After finishing secondary school, he studied at Brancheau College. He was then accepted into the Royal Thai Air Force Aviation School, where he trained as a pilot. After graduation, he worked as a flight instructor at the Don Muang Royal Thai Air Force Base. He starred in his first film in 1956, after his friend showed his picture to the editor of a movie magazine, which caught the eye of the makers of the film Tiger Instinct, and his career took off from there. While he is largely unknown outside of Thailand, in his home country, he was a borderline superstar, starring in nearly half of the 75 to 100 films produced yearly by the Thai film industry at his peak. He remains best known in Thailand for his numerous films with Thai actress Pechara Chawarat, with the pair first appearing together in the 1961 film Love Diary of Pim Chawi, before later going on to make around 165 films together. His popularity would continue throughout the 60s, and he looks set to carry this momentum over into the 70s. However, this would sadly not be the case. In 1970, production began on the film Golden Eagle. The film was notable at the time of its production for being the first film that Mitr himself produced and directed, as well as for featuring the return of Red Eagle, a popular masked crime fighter character played by Mitr, who had previously appeared in the 1959 film Gangster Lord. On October 8, 1970, as part of the final day of shooting, a scene was to be shot for the film's closing sequence, in which Red Eagle climbs upon a rope ladder hanging beneath a helicopter being flown off into the sunset in true action hero fashion. However, when it came time to film the scene, the helicopter flew too high above the ground for the rope ladder to be properly climbed upon, with Mitr only being able to reach the bottom rung of the ladder with his hands. Mitr was left dangling above the ground, with nothing but the bottom rung of the rope ladder to hang on to. The helicopter pilot was unaware of this and thus allowed the helicopter to continue its ascent, with Mitr eventually losing his grip and falling to the ground, being killed instantly upon impact. As the cameras were filming the entirety of the helicopter's ascent, Mitr's fall to the ground was caught on camera. When the film was initially released in theaters in 1970, the decision was made to include the footage in the final cut. However, in what fashion this was incorporated remains unknown, but when the film was released on DVD in 2005, the complete footage of Mitr's death was removed, with the film cutting away after the helicopter begins to take flight. The footage of Mitr's fall was instead replaced with further footage of the helicopter, followed by a text scroll commemorating his life. Since then, no footage of Mitr falling has made its way to the public. Those who may be in possession of the footage will presumably also be unlikely to release it in order to pay respect to Mitr's memory, leaving the footage of his death unlikely to ever be released. Albert Fish was an American serial killer, cannibal, and rapist. He is known to have killed at least 3 children between 1924 and 1932, though he also claimed to have killed children in every state, leading to the belief that he may have had over 100 victims, though it is of course unknown whether Fish was actually telling the truth. Born on May 19, 1870, Fish led a troubled early life. He confessed that when he was only 20 years old, he had begun prostituting himself in New York City and had begun to molest young boys. His sexual deviancy only worsened over time, when upon viewing a waxworks museum that showcased a bisection of the male genitalia, Fish began to desire committing sexual mutilation. His first known victim was Thomas Keeden, who was 19 years old and mentally disabled. In 1910, Fish, after seducing Keeden, lured him into a farmhouse where he proceeded to torture him. While Fish originally intended to kill Keeden, he decided to spare him because he was concerned the hot weather could lead to his exposure. It's not known what happened to Keeden after that, as Fish himself did not seem interested in his fate. Over the 1910s to the 1920s, Fish also began to develop a fascination with cannibalism. This would lead to the murder of 9-year-old Francis McDonnell on July 14, 1924. After being reported missing by his parents, a search ultimately led to the body being discovered in a forest not too far from his home in Staten Island. An autopsy revealed that he had been sexually abused and strangled with his own suspenders. Despite McDonnell's friends claiming to the police that a man suspiciously similar to Fish had taken the boy, the murder at the time remained unsolved. On February 11, 1927, 4-year-old Billy Gaffney disappeared in Brooklyn after playing with his friends, the Beaton brothers. Billy Beaton, aged 3, had also vanished, but was found on the roof of the apartments that he, Gaffney, and his 12-year-old brother, who had left to enter his apartment, were playing at. Beaton claimed that, quote, the boogeyman took him, when asked regarding Gaffney, leading to Fish also being dubbed the boogeyman. The body of Gaffney has never been recovered, although a letter by Fish details the boy's fate, with Fish claiming that he gagged and mutilated his victim before proceeding to kill and cannibalize the boy. A year later, on May 25, 1928, Fish responded to a New York World edition advertising the services of 18-year-old Edward Budd with the intent to murder Edward. However, despite promising to hire Budd and a friend of his when he met them in Manhattan, Fish did not show up, although he promised to do so later in a telegram sent to them. When he arrived, he decided instead to focus his intentions on Bud's 9-year-old sister Grace, luring her into his grasp by convincing her parents to let him take her to a niece's birthday party. Once assured they were alone, Fish proceeded to choke her to death and cannibalize her. In an attempt to avoid detection, Fish wrote an anonymous letter to Bud's parents, claiming that a friend of his, Captain John Davis, had cannibalized multiple children during a famine in Hong Kong. He wrote that he was so convinced by Davis's claim that human flesh tasted good that he proceeded to abduct and kill Grace to find out, admitting he had eaten her entire body. The letter led to Fish's downfall, as a police investigation of the envelope that the letter was delivered in found that it was actually sent from New York Private Chauffeurs Benevolent Association. The resulting investigation led police to Fish, where he confessed to murdering Bud. He would later also confess to the murders of Francis McDonnell and Billy Gaffney. His further confessions led to him being branded as the most vicious child slayer in criminal history by the New York Daily Mirror. Despite Fish pleading insanity, with his attorney James Dempsey defending him by noting how Fish was deemed insane and had various sexual abnormalities, he would be found guilty of his crimes and was sentenced to death via electric chair on March 22, 1935. He was executed on January 16, 1936, aged 65. While his letters confessing to the murders of Gaffney and Budd emphasize his twisted mind and can be easily viewed online, his attorney revealed that he had also written several notes in the hours leading up to his execution. Very little is known about the contents of these notes, as Dempsey refused to release them publicly, and they have remained locked away to this day. The only people to know what was written on these notes were Fish and Dempsey themselves, and with both men now being long dead, speculation over the contents of these notes continues to arise. Based on Dempsey's comments to the media surrounding releasing the notes contents were deemed too obscene for public viewing. While he did mention the notes to form Fish's final statement, he was adamant that the document would be locked away, stating, quote, "I will never show it to anyone. It was the most filthy string of obscenities that I have ever read." As of today, it's unknown whether the notes still exist, or if they were destroyed by Dempsey. Either way, due to how much time has passed, it seems extremely unlikely that these notes will ever be made available to the public. Luby's is a chain of cafeteria-style restaurants that operates in the state of Texas. Despite a significant financial hit in the wake of the COVID-19 pandemic, over 40 locations currently stand as of April 2022. In 1990, Luby's branched out into the city of Killeen. The restaurant became popular with older crowds and those who went out to eat during the lunch breaks. On October 16, 1991, the restaurant was packed for Boss's Day. By noon, an estimated 120 people, both diners and employees, were inside the building. At 12:39 p.m., George Hennard, a 35-year-old former merchant marine, drove his 1987 Ford Ranger pickup truck into the cafeteria. Believing that it was an accident, numerous patrons ran to Hennard's aid and to help those that had been knocked over during the crash. As people approached the driver's side door, Hennard opened fire with a Glock 17 semi-automatic handgun. He proceeded to exit his truck and shoot and kill 22 people while injuring 20 others. During the ordeal, a toddler began flailing and screaming in her mother's arms. Hennard allowed the two to leave, but killed the toddler's grandmother when she tried to escape with them. Tommy Vaughan, a local mechanic, threw his body through one of the back windows, giving an opportunity for several patrons to escape. 3 police officers rushed into the restaurant and attempted to flank him. After being shot twice, Hennard ran to an alcove that led to the bathrooms, falsely claiming that he had a hostage. Hennard exchanged gunfire with the authorities before he was struck by another bullet. The entire massacre lasted just 12 minutes. His motives remain unclear, though he had a history of drug use, sexual violence, and failed relationships. His ex-roommate said that Hennard thought of women as snakes and made derogatory remarks about them, even after fights with his mother. Survivors noted that he had stepped over several male patrons in order to purposely execute the women. As he began shooting, Hennard repeatedly screamed, "All women of Killeen and Belton are vipers. This is what you've done to me and my family." At one point during the massacre, he taunted a victim, saying, "Hiding from me, bitch," before shooting her at point-blank range. Immediately following the massacre and Hennard's death, the police filmed the crime scene, with all of the bodies still laying where they were when they were killed. They were tagged by placing green dining napkins over their faces, which were removed before filming began. It should be noted that some of the victims were turned over onto their backs for proper identification. A majority of the bodies seen in the walkthrough were not in these specific positions when they were murdered. Clips of the footage were shown to the public in the 2008 documentary, Going Postal: 15 Shocking Acts of Violence. More footage appeared in December 2017 during an episode of Copycat Killers. The latter broadcast showed more graphic aspects of the walkthrough while censoring the faces of the deceased. In 2016, a Reddit user claimed to have viewed the footage firsthand during one of the criminal justice courses in Bell County. They said the videographer entered the restaurant through the same path of the perpetrator's vehicle and began to pan to the left where the line had been formed. They went from victim to victim, documenting their location. The investigators had taken the state IDs and driver's licenses of the deceased and laid them on top of their chests to note their name and location. They had already turned over all of the victims so that the videographer could get a clear picture of their face. It was eerie, but effective. Considering that this story was shared before the extensive footage was shown, this user appears to be telling the truth, adding to the potential validity of the video's contents. It's unknown how long the walkthrough footage is in terms of runtime. Given that the picture shows investigators examining Hennard's truck at night, the walkthrough is probably several hours long. One explanation could be that another video was recorded solely for evidence collection. As of April 2022, the footage is currently believed to be in the hands of the Killeen Police Department. It's unclear if copies of the walkthrough exist among former investigators, though this is unlikely as it wouldn't make sense for the police department to allow individual officers to keep their own copies. Though at the very least it would seem that more than one police department has a copy of the footage, though the odds of them sharing this footage with the public are probably slim to none. Many images of the crime scene exist, but the majority of them are too graphic to show on YouTube without risking this video's monetization. So obviously I can't put them in this video, so I guess sorry to blue ball you, gore lovers. And that's the end of the video, folks. I think this may be the last Lost Media video I make, at least for quite some time. I know I said these types of videos are what put my channel on the map, so to speak, but I feel like I may have covered all the examples that I find interesting. The majority of the remaining examples I can think of are either media that's been found, or mostly gory, banned movies that might be scary to watch, but are ultimately just movies and not really not safe for life. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. I know it took a pretty long time to come out, and wasn't nearly as long as my last video, but I hope it was at least worth your time. Speaking of my last video, something pretty cool happened regarding it a few weeks after it came out. It was actually given a shout out by two famous individuals, one of which found the video due to their association with the wrestling business. This was actually really cool for me because I actually have fond memories of watching them in the dying days of WCW. The company was a dumpster fire by then, but these two were always pretty entertaining. I'll leave you now with a clip from the Twitch broadcast where the shout out happened. Thank you very much for watching. Be sure to like the video, leave a comment and subscribe if you're new, and I'll see you all next time. Much motherfucking Wicked Clown love.
I saw this thing on YouTube called the 10 evilest wrestlers.
Oh man,
okay,
man, that took a fucking left.
And I thought when it was coming on, I'm like, oh, this is gonna be corny as hell. They're gonna be like, oh, Roddy Piper was a bad guy. You know what I mean? I thought it was gonna be like gimmick style.
Oh yeah, okay.
But
that's what I thought you
man,
said.
it wasn't gimmick style.
So
it was
like the chic
real
shit.
life.
Yeah.
Okay, and it was full of shit I had no idea about. Like out of all the wrestling shit we know, I had no fucking clue what they were talking about, and it's all real.
Wow.
Okay, like there's
example?
one lady was a luchador in Mexico, and she ended up killing literally 100 people. Like, she was killing old people. She was going to their house.
Oh, I thought you meant in the ring. I'm like,
no. She was going to this after she retired.
So she was a serial killer.
She was going to their house, fronting like she was a social worker from the.
Okay, so she was a retired lucha.
Yeah.
Okay, but still, she's a fucking
And she
murderer.
was going to their house, acting like she was from the something.
Yeah.
You know, and they were letting them in,
The
and
Social
she would
Security
choke them
officer.
out and then rob their house. You gotta watch this shit.
Okay, I'm good.
The 10 evilest wrestlers, because they cover it in depth and they fucking school you. Like, I thought I knew everything about everything wrestling. Dog, I didn't know any of these stories they were telling, and they're next level shit.
No, because I'm the same way. Like, I would love to watch that because I'm the same way, and I like to get schooled
It's
with that
really
shit, man.
interesting shit, man.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, really next level shit, you know. Shit, like, I thought I had low expectations, I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
But
Like Bobby
man,
the Weasel
it was
Heenan.
very informative
a
and
dick.
really fucking good, man. And it's hard to believe out of all the wrestling specials and shit on YouTube, nobody's talking about the shit he was covering. But they're all motherfuckers that are just evil.
Yeah,
Like
hey,
they know
you
that,
do.
you know, they're smart
You
about
got your
hiding it,
Hitlers and
that they
whatnot,
killed
yeah.
somebody and shit.
Oh, like that,
And these
yeah, hide
wrestlers
shit.
are fucking crazy, man. You watch it and you'd be like, damn, I had no idea, man. Really interesting shit.